Constance here. Welcome back to A Good Life Farm. So today I just thought I would chat with you a little bit. I do want to share a recipe with all of you, something that I made on Friday. It is a variation of a recipe that's been on my website for several years, but I kind of switched it up just a little bit, made some modifications to it this time around. But a while back I did a video where I talked about keeping Shabbat, keeping the Sabbath, which is something that I've done for some time now. And if you want to see that video, I'll just link to that down below so you can see a little bit more about why I keep it. But one of the questions that I got, and I've never really addressed it, I don't think, is how I keep it, what I do for the Sabbath, how I guard it, how I keep it holy. And so I just want to briefly touch on that after I take a sip of coffee. So for me, one of the things that I do is I have an alarm on my phone, and it goes off every Thursday and reminds me that tomorrow is Friday, tomorrow is preparation day. Because on Friday, I will do all the things that I need to do to prepare for the Sabbath. Part of that is, as far as groceries go, I figure out what I'm going to cook. Then I make out my grocery list. I get everything that I need, everything that I might need for the next couple of days, because I don't want to run out of half and half for my coffee. But I'll make sure that I get everything I need. I'll go usually on Friday morning, pick up all of the groceries that I need, and then later that afternoon I will do some cooking. And one of the things that I really like to do is make sure that I cook enough for not only Friday evening when the sun goes down, but for Saturday as well. And sometimes that means making double, making a little bit extra. I just like to make sure that I'm not sitting here working in the kitchen all day on Saturday when it's supposed to be a day of rest. And so that is one of the things that I will do. I'll also make sure that we have hay for the animals. I make sure that all of their big totes that we keep hay in for the animals are filled, so that we're not having to haul bales of hay on Saturday. I just do all of these things the day before, on Friday. I have everything prepped. I'll go through the house tidying up, just kind of making everything nice, because most people don't realize, but the Sabbath is actually one of God's feasts. When you look in scripture and it talks about keeping his feasts, usually people think of that as being something that's on an annual basis, and most are. The spring feasts are annual, the fall feasts are annual, but the Shabbat is so special, he gives it to us every single week. And so, you know, we should kind of make things a little bit special. I even have a set of dishes that I found at an antique store not too long ago, and I got them specifically for those special occasions like Shabbat and the feasts. Now those are the kinds of things that most people do for Shabbat. Do the grocery shopping, do the tidying, the cooking, all of that. You know, the homestead things like for the animals, that's a little bit extra just because of our situation. So those are kind of the basic things, but then when it comes to actually keeping Shabbat, you know, I have my own way of doing it. It is my way of making the day special. I have a couple collections or a couple sets of candlesticks. I like to light a candle or two, just depending upon my mood. Here on my table, I kind of change up the centerpiece, the tablescape, from time to time, just because I like to play around with it and decorate it with different things that I already have in the house, whether it's candlesticks or little knickknacks and things like that. I change it up pretty often, and you see that sometimes on my Instagram account where I've posted little photos and, you know, then wished people a Shabbat Shalom, which is a peaceful Shabbat. The word shalom means peace, but it means peace that only God can bring. And so as the sun is setting, before dark arrives, I will light a candle, I will say a blessing, and then when it's officially sunset, I will go outside and I will blow my shofar. And it is just my way of declaring the Sabbath has begun and it is time to rest. And then on Saturdays, I make it a very restful day. Sometimes I might even be known to take a nap, but usually what I do is I will watch an online service, I will go to a local fellowship that I'm a part of, and I spend a lot of time in the Word and just making the day holy. So that said, this past Friday, I did a double batch of a casserole because I went to fellowship and we always do a potluck. And so I made a batch of this casserole to take there, and then I also made a batch for us. And I based it on a recipe that's been on my website for many years, and it's called chicken tortilla chip casserole. It's kind of like a fun little casserole, and it's really good. It's something I do like to make from time to time. And so as part of my preparing for the Sabbath on Friday, again, it was tidying up the kitchen, putting things away so that things are done for the evening and done for the Sabbath. And the night before, I had been making some chicken broth. I had cooked chicken and kept the carcass and let it just cook in my slow cooker to make a simple batch of some chicken broth. Never let a carcass go to waste when you cook a whole chicken. And when you're just doing a small batch, the slow cooker works great for that. I just tossed in some onions, some peppercorns, a few seasonings, and just let it go. And so on Friday, I strained out all of that broth and I just put it into some freezer containers and popped it into my freezer so that I could use that for recipes. Of course, I left some of it in my slow cooker so I could use it for this casserole. And little Miss Willow is waking up, so let me go grab her real quick. So as I was saying, this recipe was based off of my chicken tortilla chip casserole. And I'm not going to give you all of the measurements just because I did a double batch, but I will walk you through the recipe and just let you know about what I made substitutions on. So the recipe starts off with some diced onion and some diced bell pepper. And this time around I used red onion and I used a red bell pepper. Normally it just calls for a regular onion and regular green bell pepper, but I decided to use the red for this particular instance. And again, I did a double batch. Usually it's about half a cup for each. Then I sauteed those in a skillet with a little bit of olive oil until they were nice and tender. When they were just about done, I added in some minced garlic. And then after it cooked for a couple more minutes, I sprinkled in some all-purpose flour, mixed that all together. Then I added in some chicken broth from the slow cooker, from the batch that I had made, along with some milk. And I whisked that together and let it cook until it began to bubble and boil and thicken up. And while that was cooking, I added in my seasonings. Some roasted coriander, some ancho chili powder, some cumin, and some ground black pepper. And then once that had come to a boil and thickened up, I turned the heat down to very low and I added in some cream cheese and I let that melt all together. And once it was melted, I removed it from the heat. So then I greased a 9x13 baking pan and I put in about half a cup of that creamy mixture. Then I layered in some canned black beans that had been rinsed and drained. Goodness! I added cooked diced chicken And then I crushed some tortilla chips and sprinkled those all over the top. I spread half of the creamy mixture all over those. And then I repeated the layers of the diced chicken and the tortilla chips and the other half of the creamy sauce. And normally this would call for green enchilada sauce. However, when I went to the grocery store to get some enchilada sauce, they didn't have any good enchilada sauce. And so I just kind of swapped that out for some salsa verde. I think I actually need to find a recipe for some homemade green enchilada sauce so I can make it myself. Because some of the ingredients that I'm seeing in these canned things are questionable, to say the least. So I drizzled the salsa verde all over the top. Then I topped it with some shredded cheese. And I baked it at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. And then I like to serve that with some sour cream. You could also add some sliced green onions or maybe a little bit of salsa if you want. You can really play around with that. So that is it for today. Thanks for joining me and Miss Willow here in the Homestead Kitchen. If you would like to get the recipe that I shared with all of you, I will put a link to that down below where you can find it on my website. You can print it out or you can save it to Pinterest. And if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments down below. So thanks for joining us here at A Good Life Farm. We'll talk to y'all next time.